Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel, and today we're going to continue with our first unit topic, which is water, with our second subtopic which talks about the structure as well as the polarity of water molecules. Now this is one of those topics which deal with everything based on concepts and application based questions as far as IB is concerned. So without any further ado, let's get started. Now, to understand the properties of water better, it's obviously very important to get to know its structure better, its chemical structure first, right? Now, in a water molecule, the bond between the hydrogen and the oxygen is called as a polar covalent bond. Now, this is the part that we'll be discussing in detail in today's lecture. Before, of course, getting to know more about the polar covalent bond, let's get to know the broader category about what a covalent bond is in the first place. Now, covalent bond is basically a type of a chemical bond which forms when two atoms share one or more pairs of electrons. They're able to form this bond when there is sharing of pairs of electrons to attain stability. Now, there are majorly two types of covalent bonds. It can be either a non-polar covalent bond or a polar covalent bond. First, let us talk in detail about the non-polar covalent. Now, non-polar covalent bond, as you can see on the screen, is the type when the electrons, they are shared equally between the atoms. Okay, let's try to get a little more in detail here. When the two atoms have about the same or nearly the same electronegativity, that's when they are able to share the electrons equally. Now, what do we mean by electronegativity? It's basically a feature when, an element is trying to attract more electrons towards itself. So, if both are not that electronegative or are very close to their electronegativities, they tend not to snatch, or they're not trying to take the electrons towards themselves. And that's why they're able to share it equally. So neither of the atom is actually pulling the electrons towards themselves, due to which there are no charges which gets developed on either of them. And that's how there is no polarity which is established in this type of a bond. That's why it is a non-polar covalent bond. The best example is any diatom, in fact, which is in this case a hydrogen atom, which is present as a diatom. Now, hydrogen atom particularly share their electrons, of course, to attain stability. And since both of them are the same, exactly the same elements, they are not going to pull electrons to themselves because they happen to have the same electronegativity. And of course, that's why they remain non-polar. Now, the best takeaway that you can have is that if you have equal sharing of electrons, it's usually going to be, and of course, it's most probably the non-polar covalent bond, now that you understand the actual concept behind it. If there are two identical atoms which are bonded together, usually the covalent bond which is formed is a non-polar covalent bond. So those are again few of the hints or the rules that you can keep in mind from an exam point of view. Now let's elaborate on the polar covalent bond. Now, polar covalent bond, think of it like the opposite of the previous one, where the two atoms, they are not sharing the electrons equally. So there's unequal sharing. And the reason behind this is, of course, you may have guessed it right, that they have different electronegativities. Okay, so let's say one is more electronegative than the other. And of course, it will be able to pull electrons more towards itself, which happens in a polar covalent bond, right? And that leads to the unequal sharing. The best example, and also the one which we need to elaborate, of course, in our today's topic and in this unit overall, is water. Now, water has this structure where you have oxygen bonded to two hydrogen atoms. Okay. Now, oxygen here is a more electronegative atom, is more powerful. You can think of it like that, and it will try to attract more electrons towards itself, and it's in fact able to do that. Now, we know that electrons, they carry a charge which is negative. Now, because oxygen is trying to take more electrons towards itself, more electrons will try to move to the oxygen atom, and so it will try to attain some sort of a partial negative charge. Okay, so that's when we say that it's making oxygen partially negative, and it's represented by the sign or the symbol delta negative. And of course, if it's a little more negative, the other one, is by default positive, right? So hydrogen atoms are now partially positive. Now in water, we can therefore safely say that this bond which is therefore resulting, this bond which is therefore formed is the polar covalent bond. Okay, and this also gives water molecule its triangular shape, which is also called as the bent shape, not a straight line but a bent shape. And because of this shape, the charges do not cancel out, making water the actual polar molecule. And this is in fact one of a very, very important reason due to which water is able to show the kind of features that it shows, which we are going to discuss in our upcoming video. Now that we have actually learned why water is a polar molecule, what are covalent bonds, what are its types, let us try to do some practice questions. Now, you can see one of the question on the screen which says, explain why a bond between two identical atoms is always non-polar. Now, I'm just going to put up a timer here. You can take some time, think about it, try to practice simultaneously, okay? And then we'll also check out how you can expect a template answer. You can see the solution on the screen. That identical atoms tend to have, of course, the same electronegativity because they are the same, right? So they will always end up sharing electrons. They are not going to be snatching it from one another, therefore resulting in no partial charges. Now, if we were to discuss the marking scheme, which of course will be used for evaluation, this particular question can be of 3 marks, wherein you can be expected to be seen, wherein you are expected to, let's say, have your answer carrying these I would say keywords, right? You need to use identical atoms, similar electronegativity, equal sharing of electrons, no partial charges, non-polar bonds. These are all going to give you 1 mark each, which is going to give you the total of 3 marks. Let's try another one. Here's your question. Hydrogen bonds play an important role in biological molecules. Explain how the polarity of water allows hydrogen bonds to form between water molecules. Giving you a timer here. You can actually pause the video. If you want, you can do a little bit of a readout here and there. You can go back to the video here also, take some screenshots, or you can also use some previous knowledge from your previous grades, okay? But give this a try. Do give this a try. Okay, so here's your answer. The partial positive hydrogen atoms of one water molecule, as you can see here. So let's say if I draw this here, there's an oxygen atom and of course there are going to be 2 hydrogen atoms, right? Okay, and we've already described that, okay, this one is going to carry delta negative and this one is going to carry delta positive charges. Let's say there is another water molecule very close here, right? So this one is also having a delta negative charge. So the partial positive hydrogen atom, let's say we consider this one, okay, of one water molecule can of course get attracted, let's use another color, to this other, water molecule's oxygen atom, because this one is positive, this one is negative, so they will get attracted, right? And that is what we call as hydrogen bond. In fact, this is also the topic that we're going to be elaborating in our upcoming lecture. Now, let's discuss the marking scheme. Okay, here's the marking scheme. The particular question could be of 4 marks, where of course you can see that the keywords that you can use, which can fetch you marks, is partial charges, that delta positive hydrogen, delta negative oxygen, attracted, intermolecular attraction, hydrogen bonding. All these are keywords which, if it is a part of your answer, it's going to give you your full score of 4. I hope it was a fruitful lecture for you. We'll see you next time in the next coming up lecture. Bye. Take care.